Most people think wealthy people are risk takers, bold, reckless, willing to gamble everything on a hunch. The research says something completely different. The wealthy don't take more risk than everyone else. They see risk differently. And that single shift in perception, in what they consider dangerous versus safe, changes every financial decision they make. This is part 2 of the series on what 100 millionaires actually have in common. If you haven't watched part 1, it's linked in the description, but this video stands on its own. Let's get into it. There's a sentence that appears in different forms in nearly every serious study of self-made wealth, and it sounds counterintuitive until you understand it. The wealthy don't take more risk. They see risk differently. Here's what that actually means. The conventional understanding of risk is binary. You either take a risk or you play it safe. The wealthy have a more sophisticated model. They understand that inaction carries its own risk, often a far larger one than the risk of action. Keeping your savings in a low-interest account while inflation runs at 4 or 5% isn't safe. It's a guaranteed slow loss. Staying in a career with no equity, no upside, and no compounding isn't stable. It's a 40-year gamble that the salary will keep coming, the industry won't shift, and the company won't restructure. Stanley and Danko documented this directly in the Millionaire Next Door. Their millionaire cohort was far more likely to be self-employed than the general population, not because self-employment is easier, because they had calculated that long-term employment for someone else had its own risk profile, and they'd rather bet on themselves. Napoleon Hill, after 20 years of interviewing the wealthiest people of his era, described what he called a burning desire, a commitment to a specific outcome that reframes every obstacle as a cause of progress rather than a reason to stop. That's not optimism. That's a risk calculation done differently. When your primary fear is stagnation rather than failure. When you are more afraid of arriving at the end of your life unchanged than you are of a business not working, you make completely different decisions. You take the calculated bet. You make the investment. You have the difficult conversation. You leave the comfortable job. Not recklessly, but consistently. Because the cost of not doing it has become, in your psychological model, higher than the cost of trying and failing. Here is a practical reframe that comes directly out of this research. Before your next significant financial decision, whether to invest, to start something, to leave something, to learn something, ask yourself this question. What is the cost of not doing this? Not just this year, over 5 years, over 10, over 20, because that is the risk the wealthy are actually afraid of, not the downside of trying. The permanent cost of never having tried it all. In Atomic Habits, James Clear makes a distinction that changes how you have to think about behavior change. He separates 3 levels of change. Outcome level change, what you want to achieve. Process level change, what system you follow. Identity level change, who you believe you are. And his central argument is this. Most people try to change on the outside in. They set a goal, they build a system, and they hope the identity catches up. The people who create lasting change go the other direction. They start with identity. Now apply that framework to wealth. Most people think, I want to be wealthy. A smaller group thinks, I am building wealth. The smallest group, the one that actually gets there, thinks, I am someone who manages money well. That is who I am. And here's why that distinction matters mechanically, not just philosophically. Identity shapes micro-decisions automatically. When you identify as someone who is building wealth, you don't have to make a conscious calculation every time a financial decision appears. The answer emerges from the identity before conscious deliberation kicks in. You don't deliberate over whether to check your investments. You don't negotiate with yourself about the impulse purchase. You don't need motivation to read the finance book, because these things are consistent with who you are. Stanley and Danko's research found that their millionaire cohort had an almost reflexive relationship with financial stewardship. The behaviors weren't effortful. They were automatic. That's not discipline. That's identity. Napoleon Hill called this definiteness of purpose, the point at which a financial goal stops being something you pursue and starts being something you are pursuing by virtue of who you become. Carol Dweck's research adds another layer. Her studies found that people with fixed mindsets, who believed their capabilities were set, consistently underperformed people with growth mindsets, not because they lacked talent, but because their identity couldn't absorb the idea of being wrong, failing, or needing to learn. Failure threatened their identity, whereas the growth mindset group had built an identity around improvement rather than status, which meant failure was data, not a verdict. The practical question this raises is one that most financial content never asks. Who do you currently believe you are with money? Not who you want to be, not what you're trying to do. Who do you currently identify as? Because until the identity shifts, the behaviors will always feel effortful, and effort, maintained against identity, eventually loses. Every time. 2 more patterns down. Risk reframing. The understanding that inaction isn't safety, and that the wealthy have simply learned to fear stagnation more than failure. And identity-level wealth. The shift from doing wealthy things to being someone for whom wealthy things are automatic. In Part 3, the final part of this series, we're covering the single most practical pattern of all. A question. One question that Robert Kiyosaki documents, that Napoleon Hill found in all 500 of his subjects, and that neuroscience has since confirmed changes how your brain processes financial problems at a biological level. It costs nothing to use. You can start using it today. That's the final video. It's linked in the description and on the end screen. The Wealth Mindset Starter Kit is also in the description, completely free. It takes everything in this series and turns it into a working document you can use starting today. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in Part 3.